Welcome back to my channel for a fully fledged Hasselblad X2D II tutorial on customization of buttons and control wheels. Let's kick this off. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please do so, subscribe, hit the notification bell and support my work. Many thanks for that. All right, let's go right into the topic. So first of all, this is not a quick tip video. This is really a tutorial on customization of buttons, and there are a bunch of them on the camera body and control wheels. And the reason is this is too long for a quick tip video. And also, some of you said in the comments, we appreciate 3 to 5 minute videos with some dedicated topic where you explain to us how we can do it and how we do certain settings and all of that. But we also appreciate your longer tutorials where you explain in detail how things are working on various cameras for various brands. And this is now a fully fledged tutorial on the customization of these control elements here on the camera body of the Hasselblad X2D II. And the first thing you need to know is that there are functions assigned to these 4 buttons here on the right hand side of the LCD. And these buttons cannot be customized, so it doesn't make any sense to assign any function which is already covered here by these 4 buttons to any other customizable function button. Makes absolutely no sense. And that's the first thing we need to be conscious about when we talk about customization of this camera. And by the way, why should you customize the camera? Why not leaving everything in the settings as it comes out of box? Well, very simple, because you will develop, if you are a pro photographer over time, your own professional workflow. And for this, it's absolutely crucial that you have quick access to certain functions. And in this video, I will show you how you select these functions, how you assign them to buttons and control wheels, and how you make your workflow in this way much smoother in the future. Since we are now conscious that functions assigned to these 4 buttons which cannot be customized should not be associated to any other button, let's first find out what these buttons are. And I have here currently mounted the XCD38V. So let's have a look what these buttons are doing. The first one here at the top is obvious. That's the play button. So here I can review images I have shot and which are on the internal storage or the external compact flash express type B card. Simple like that. And the next one here is actually the one which toggles through the display representations. And that will be a different video how to customize that, because that's also very interesting and there is some flexibility for you depending on your need of information when you shoot that camera. Pushing it another one goes me to the grid here and so on. Here I have the distance scale and here I have the level gauge here, which is also nice. And here it's completely empty, only the focus field is visible. And here I'm back in my usual shooting mode. And the next one here is actually doing nothing, but it's doing nothing because the focus field is currently sitting in the center of the frame. If I move it, let's say here, let's go here to a dark area where you see it, and I press that button, it centers the focus field back. See? Boom, it comes back. No matter where it's sitting, it centers the focus field. And since these buttons cannot be customized, it doesn't make sense to have this function, namely centering the focus field, assigned to a push to the joystick, which would be my natural choice. And you can, of course, do it. I might even show it to you very quickly, but you would waste one function if you do it in this way. It's already here on this button. Just remember it when you need it. And it's not sitting naturally where, in my opinion, it should sit, namely the push of that joystick. And then the next one here, the last one, is basically going into the menu and toggling between these 2 screens for the settings. You can also do this by swipe. I show you. Here you go. Now you're here. Swipe forth and back and so on. You have, by the way, a lot of swipe functionality here. If you look here, now you're in live view. Now you are back here. Now you are back here, going back and so on. So you can also use and exploit touch functionality here on that screen, of course. But this takes me in the menu and toggles between the settings screen and the quick overview of parameters I've set for the shooting. So these 4 buttons, these functions, what they are doing, they should not be assigned to any other button. Otherwise, you waste quick access to a function because you have it twice on one of these buttons and on some other customizable function button. So don't do it. First of all, let's become smart about what buttons we have and control wheels on this camera body. We spoke about those 4 already. We saw what they do, and we should make sure that no function which is assigned somewhere here goes somewhere else. Then we have here auto exposure lock. We have here autofocus drive. We have here a customizable function button. We can also customize what happens if we push the joystick. We have here the M button. We have here the ISO and white balance button. We have one button on the front side of the camera, just sitting here, convenient actually to operate here with your finger on the front side of the camera. And we have 2 control wheels, namely the rear control wheel here, which can be rotated, but also pushed like a button. And we have front control wheel, which is here and can also be pushed like a button. So that's the elements we have at our disposal. Now, not all of these mechanical control elements can be customized in the same way. And we already saw that these buttons here cannot be customized. They are carved in stone in terms of what they do when you push them. So let's go into the menu here and let's go to General. And in General, we find Custom Buttons. And Custom Buttons, the second line item here, includes the push functionality of the 2 control wheels on the rear side and the front side. So let's go into this. And now we see here a first representation of the front side. If I swipe, I get a representation of the top side of the camera. If I swipe again, I get the representation of the rear side of the camera. And we have here all in, if we look on the front side, we have 2 custom options. We have on the top side 3 and on the rear side also 3. So that makes all in 8 different control elements, mechanical control elements, where we can apply some customization. Now on the front side, we have 2 elements here. We have, first of all, this front control wheel and can customize what happens if we push it and use it like a button. And we have that customizable function button here. Now, how do I access this? And first of all, I can use the rear control wheel. If I just turn it, it starts to go to these different options. This is now customizing the front button. This is customizing the front wheel click. And this is taking me back into the menu. So very simple. I can also, let me go there again and show you the different options. I can also here just tap. And if I tap it, it opens immediately a menu where I can choose my functions. Now, currently, this is on zoom in and zoom out. Now, you can, of course, choose other functions here. And I think a useful one, for instance, would be the drive mode cycle. That's something I access very often. The meter method cycle is very useful. I could use that one. And there are a bunch of things which I find personally useful to have there. But of course, there are also, I just went back to the beginning of the list. There are also a lot of functions which have actually an engraving already on some other button. Let's make an example here. So for instance, auto exposure lock assigning to the front wheel click doesn't make any sense because I have here a dedicated button which even makes it possible for me to read what's assigned to that button. Or AFD, autofocus drive, doesn't make any sense to assign this to the front wheel if I have already dedicated button for that. And ISO white balance I have already here on the top, and so on and so on. So it should be a function which does not confuse us at the very end. If we have here ISO assigned and white balance and we assign it then here and here something else, that doesn't make any sense to me. So let's do this with some logical thinking. What would be meaningful, of course, is depth of field preview, or you could also go to electronic shutter on and off. I think that is maybe for demonstration purposes currently a good one to choose, although I'm not a big fan of the electronic shutter. Reset focus point doesn't make any sense. We have this already here. Display off is not really useful. I think meter method cycle is good and drive mode cycle. Let's take drive mode cycle and let's confirm this. As I said, you can tap here, right? You can, by the way, also here swipe very quickly. You don't have to use the wheel. You always have these 2 options, touch functionality and mechanical element. But let's go to drive mode cycle. Let's take this and then it updated here. And for the front custom function button, I have the meter method cycle. So let's try this out. If I push now the front wheel here, it gets me here into the different options. You see the drive modes here. And you see how this is updating here on the left-hand side boundary of the LCD screen. You see, I can just go through this. Now I'm in single drive mode again, single shooting. Let's try this with this button here, this one here. Let's go through this, and then it should also cycle. Here we have center weighted, here we have spot, and here we have center spot. And that's the way it works. You see, Very nice. And it also updates immediately in the exposure preview here. If I go to spot, for instance, let's go to center spot here. So these two elements here on the front side, the wheel and the button down here, they are now customized in the way I want them. And in this way, we have for the first representation screen here, mission accomplished. And by the way, I showed before you can swipe here now to the top representation. You can also use the front wheel for that. I turn the front wheel and then I can also toggle between these three different representations. So let's go to the second one. And here we find as the first customizable option here, the lens control ring. And the lens control ring is here on this lens here. And currently that's set to aperture. And I'm here in aperture priority. So let's try this out. Let's go here into live view. And I can use my front wheel to steer the aperture. Look at here, you have now f2.8, f2.5, that's widest open. Then we go here to, by the way, let me go to a different screen so you see this better. This is white numbers on dark background, makes more sense. So this is widest open f2.5, 2.8. I can stop down all the way to more closed apertures. And currently this is set up in a way that this customizable control ring here is also steering that functionality. Watch what happens if I turn it. Now it's stopping down. And let me do it this way. And now it's opening the aperture, stopping down, opening the aperture. And that's assigned to this control ring here on the lens. And if I want to change that, I can go back here into the second representation. Let's swipe there again. Lens control ring, I can tap on it. And now I have different options. I could, for instance, assign ISO to this. I don't think this is meaningful. We have ISO already on one of the top view buttons. You could have aperture, you could have exposure time, you could have exposure value, switch subject, which is probably good if you have subject detection and you want to track, or you can have none. For me, actually, none is often a good option because I operate this ring very likely accidentally and then be surprised later on when I look at the images. So I will choose here none. But of course, if you like to have here the aperture and get a little bit of a Leica lens feeling here, and in this way controlling the aperture, let's go here into the menu. So you see this is like an aperture ring. It even has nice clicks. Why not choosing it in this way? But in this way, you have the functionality twice because you have it then on the ring here. See? It's on the ring, on the lens, and you also have it on the front control wheel because the only customizable option on the front control wheel is actually the push, not the turn. So you have this functionality twice then. Let's go back here into general and custom buttons. Let's swipe to this one here. And it's still set on AV. Let me take this to none because then I cannot have any accidents here. See, now it's none. And now if I turn this ring, nothing will happen. Let's go into the control screen. It's nicely clicking, but it's not doing any harm to me. So that's the way I set this up. But as I said, please be free to do it differently. The other two customization options we have here is the M button and the ISO and white balance button on the top side view representation. And you see them here. Here's M, here's ISO and white balance. And the one which you should not change definitely is ISO and white balance. It's really my advice because very often you will need quick access to ISO settings. And that's the only setting where you have double functionality. Let me actually show this to you. If I press this button once, I get access to my ISO setting here on the right-hand side of the LCD screen. And then I go back. And if I press it twice, very quickly, consecutively, 1, 2, I get quick access to white balance. And that's the only double whamming button feature, if you want to call it that way, you have on that camera. Pressing once, ISO setting, pressing 2 times quickly after each other, boom, boom, gets me the white balance. And if we go back into that list, I show you that this is the only one where you have this functionality with a single push and a double push. And if we go here back to this representation of the top side view, I go to ISO and white balance. And if I scroll through that list, let's swipe it this time so you see that this works. This is the only double functionality I can assign to a button. So it makes absolutely no sense to change this. And in particular, since it's graved in here as ISO and white balance, it will only confuse you in your workflow if you change this button. Now for the M button, I have options, of course. And let me quickly go here into that again. Second representation. I have chosen this to be zoom in and out. And this does the following here. If I push it, it zooms into the scene for manual focus or checking autofocus, and then it zooms out again. And I think this is meaningful because M stands originally factory set for mode dial. So you choose the mode here like aperture priority, fully manual mode, shutter speed priority, what have you. But M, in my opinion, could also be magnification. And if you assign functions to buttons and they have an engraving like here, a capital M, make sure it's meaningful. And magnification is something I need anyway. Why not assigning it to the M button? Why do I not want the modes there? Because the modes are easily changed here. If you look at that, I just push here and then I can change it. There is not really a gain for me, and I do not change mode all the time in a shooting. I'm either shooting for a while in aperture priority or in manual mode on a tripod, or I shoot shutter speed priority, but I will not change that all the time from shot to shot. But zooming in is a really good functionality for me. I will use this all the time, and M for me stands for magnification and not for mode. With this, we covered everything on the top side view. We already covered the front view. We covered the top side view. Let's now go to rear control elements. And here we have the rear wheel click. And you see how I set this up. How you access this is now always the same. This is repetitive now. And I have set this to arbitrary tracking on and off. And I will do for sure an autofocus tutorial for the Hasselblad X2D Mark II. And in this video, I will explain you why this is my choice. I think this is one of the functions which is a little bit hidden in the camera and is absolutely crucial and important. So stay tuned and don't miss that video. I will talk in detail about that. And that's my setting here. And then we have the joystick click. And I said before and have set it up in this way, it's very tempting to have here a reset focus point because that's natural, right? You move with your focus field here around in the frame and then you click it and it jumps back to the center of the frame. But that's a waste. And we already saw this because I have it here on that X button. And that functionality is covered. I just need to remember that it is here and not naturally trying to do it via the joystick as I do it on other cameras. Boom, now it's back, see? And I don't want to have double functionality because that's a waste of customization. So let's change this to something more meaningful now. Now I want to change this to crop mode cycle and I show you how it works in a moment. So let's go to this one here. And what happens now is if I go back into live view and I press that button, it will show me the different crop modes. And here is X-Pan, for instance. Here is 6x6, 6x7, 4x5, letter, and so on. I have them all here until I come back to no crop, which is the 645 format. And this is very useful. And I think in general, the crop feature in this camera is highly underrated. If you're interested to hear more about that, in particular, I think the X-Pan mode is really attractive on that camera. And I'm really tempted to make a dedicated video about that. It's really, really cool. So this is the function I want to assign here. And let's go back into general. Let's go to custom buttons again. This one we covered, this one we covered. Now we have here crop mode cycle. And the rear customizable function button is this one here. This is set to focus point and subject detection. And the way it works, let's go here. I press it and now I've conveniently with two control wheels on both sides the option to steer how my autofocus should behave. So you have people, look at this side here, people, animals, cars and off. And I control this with the front wheel and with the rear side wheel, I control here my different focus fields and have them here, right? You see that. And by the way, there is a lot to talk about focus and autofocus on this camera. That's why I think I want to show you in a dedicated tutorial everything you need to know about this topic. And I will come back in this particular video on focus and autofocus, why I put arbitrary tracking on off on the rear wheel click and on the rear custom button, this one here, the focus point and subject detection. This is the most convenient way for me to switch very quickly between different modes when autofocusing and when hunting for a subject. In terms of customization of buttons and button type functionality, like on the two control wheels here, I'm actually done. What I didn't cover is what is AFD doing, so autofocus drive and auto exposure lock. And as pro photographers, you will very likely know that with auto exposure lock, you lock in where currently in spot metering, you are metering light, and autofocus drive is basically autofocus. And this is the back button focus a lot of people praise highly and love so much. And this is fully implemented on the Hasselblad X2D II, and in this way should find the liking of many shooters. I'm sure you agree that this would have not fit into the format of a quick tip video. It's too long, but I think it deserves attention. It deserves time and diligence to go through these customization options on the X2D II. If you liked that video, don't forget to drop me a thumbs up. Stay tuned on my channel. There's always more to come. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and healthy. And of course, peace out.